Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the invitation to attend this morning. My name is DOrrEwing. I'm Head of Species and Land Management for RSPB Scotland. My regular job involves the management of RSPB's nature reserves in Scotland. I'm also involved in our species conservation programme, and I head up the RSPB's UK investigations team, and that is the team that work with the police to investigate wildlife crime. But today I'm going to talk about some of the satellite tagging work that I've been involved with SAVE. Starting my first visit to India was in 2006, working with Vibhu Prakash and the team there, both at Pinjore and in Buxar. Next slide, please. Okay, so a bit of background. I've worked on tagging raptors since 1991 in Scotland. I've been involved with species reintroduction projects for both red kite and white-tailed eagle. And most of the work that we've done here has involved tagging these species, firstly with VHF radio tags in the olden days in the 1990s. And then from the 2000s, as the technology improved, we moved on to fitting satellite tags. In the UK, this work is highly regulated. The British Trust for Ornithology, on behalf of the UK state nature conservation organisations, regulate this activity. And in Scotland, there are probably about 5 or 6 people who have the authorisations to actually fit these tags. So this is not something that is done lightly, and it requires quite a bit of technical expertise to do it. As I say, our focus clearly has not been on vultures because we don't have those in the UK. It has been on other species of raptors, and over the years, myself and my colleagues have probably tagged most of the different types of raptors that we have that occur in Scotland. We also are involved with the Scottish Raptor Study Group, who are a group of expert raptor people who work on monitoring raptors in Scotland, and as I say, some of those are authorised also to tag raptors. Next slide, please. For the tagging training I'm going to talk about in a minute, I've been working most recently in Nepal and in India and latterly with my colleague Dave Anderson, who is a member of the Scottish Raptor Study Group and a friend of mine, who is an expert also on tagging eagles. And here you can see in these images an adult golden eagle and a juvenile golden eagle that we've tagged, in this case using MTI. These are American satellite tags. Next slide, please. So in 2018 and 2019, we were hosted by BCN in Nepal and went over and supported their work in tagging vultures. Firstly, we were called over in 2018 to assist because the first releases of vultures were due to take place in September, and there was a need for fitting some satellite tags on raptors at that time. So working alongside our colleague John Malord, Dave and I went out to Nepal, working with Krishnan Busal and Ankit Joshi, and helped fit satellite tags on both released vultures and wild wild vultures that were trapped. And during this time, we instructed the BCN team on how to fit satellite tags. In this case, these are Ornitella tags manufactured in Latvia. We fitted these tags, 30-gram tags, onto white rump vultures. And we also demonstrated techniques on how to fit wing tags. And you'll see this bird marked C2 here was one of the birds that we tagged at that time. And since then, the BCN team have developed huge expertise in this area. And their main tagging practitioner, a guy called Ishwari Chowdhury, is now an expert in his own right and assists with tagging. And it's very pleasing to see that local capacity has now been developed in Nepal to do this work largely themselves, but we're here and on hand to support them if needed. Next slide, please. Moving on from then, obviously we had the COVID period, which hampered our involvement with fitting and training people to fit satellite tags in other countries. We had planned to go out to both India and Bangladesh in 2020, but that visit was postponed. But then a rescheduled event was fixed with Vibhu Prakash at Pinjore in India to train BNHS staff in October 2022. And during this time, Dave, again, myself and John Malord helped Vibhu and the team and trained up about 15 or 16 BNHS staff to fit satellite tags to vultures. We were aided as well by Ishwari Chowdhury from the BCN team, which was excellent. And we fitted tags on on 3 species of vultures. That was white rump vulture, Indian long-billed vulture, and slender-billed vulture. And during this time, we worked out the harness sizes that we needed to fit on all of these birds. So we have all of that information now. We demonstrated the method that we use is the thoracic harness method of attachment, which I will come on to describe in a bit more detail in a minute. Next slide, please. So the thoracic cross-strap method of harness attachment is the method that we've been using for many years in Scotland to fit satellite tags to most of the raptor species here, but especially the eagle species, which are of similar weight to some of the Asian vulture species. The tag is fitted by basically a harness which is attached and sewn at the sternum of the bird. So the breastbone of the bird. We use Teflon ribbon, which is the standard piece of equipment that is used now. And you'll see in the image on the right, we also have a bespoke breast template that we have developed for fitting the tag. You will also note in that image that the tag is marked with dimensions, so measurements, which allow a very neat and accurate fitting of the tag. And we have trained the BCN staff, the BNHS staff now to use this technique, and very successfully. Again, in terms of capacity building, BNHS staff proved very, very skilled in fitting these tags. Next slide, please. We then moved on in October 22, as Dipu has already described, to Bangladesh. John Malord and I went to Bangladesh, and along with Dipu, and I won't go into this in more detail because Dipu has already described it, we worked with Dipu and his colleagues Sakim and Jennifer to tag the first wild white rump vulture in Nepal, and that's in Bangladesh, and that is shown in the image in the right. And Dipu has described some of the movements of that bird subsequently. Next slide, please. We also ran with Dipu 2 training events. The first was at Dhaka Zoo and the second was at Dhaka Safari Park. And during the course of these events, we marked both white-rumped vultures, but also for the first time, Himalayan griffon vultures. So we now have the measurements for the harnesses for all 4 Asian vulture species that we've marked. The only one that we haven't marked so far is the king vulture or red-headed vulture, but no doubt we could come up with a plan to also do the measurements for that species if needed. Next slide, please. So subsequently, and following the visit to both India and Bangladesh this time around, I have worked with colleagues David Anderson, Vibhu Prakash, John Malord, and Ishwari Chowdhury to update the methodology for the thoracic X-strap cross-strap harness design. So previously we had written this down, but we've now actually updated it and improved it. And accompanying images are also supplied. This, we hope, will be published very shortly and will be available for all practitioners to use. It builds also on the work some of you attended. I know Dipu was there. There was an event in Gloucestershire, and I think it was 2016, where we worked with Jemima Parry-Jones at her Raptor Centre to develop best practice methods around marking of vultures. And that was subsequent to that, a video was produced and some papers have been produced on that event as well, which is a very good reference point as well. So I hope this paper will be available shortly for everybody to use and sets out the method that we have used very successfully, mostly in Nepal, but also now in India as well and Bangladesh as well, to mark vultures in those countries. Next slide, please. So just by way of conclusion, and as was mentioned previously, satellite tagging is going to become increasingly important as captive vultures are released in vulture-safe areas. But also we hope that shortly in India, some wild vultures will be tagged to test the safety of vulture-safe zones. It is absolutely vital that if satellite tagging is done, it's done to a high standard and by trained individuals. I can't emphasize this too strongly. This is a technical piece of work. It requires some bespoke skills, and the welfare of the tag birds is for us the paramount consideration. Clearly, we don't want to be fitting bits of kit onto birds that then result in mortality of these birds. That kind of goes against the general principle of doing this. The thoracic harness method of satellite tagging has now been used successfully on gyps vultures in Nepal, as Ankit described, for some years now, and is working extremely well. So we know that the thoracic harness method is highly suitable for vultures. We now have, as I mentioned, the harness measurements for all four of the Asian gyps vulture species. We have now trained various BNHS staff in India and IUCN staff in Bangladesh, as well as BCN staff in Nepal. And there are now some skilled practitioners in all of those teams. As I say, we're on hand to provide additional support. And finally, the method statement paper is currently being updated involving BNHS and BCN, so Vibhu Prakash and Shwari Chowdhury as co-authors. And I'm proposing here that SAVE adopts the thoracic harness method as its standard method of satellite tag attachment to vultures. Thank you.